Hi guys, welcome to Paradox of Losing Cycle channel. And today we're going to talk about gamblers' psychology. This is a pretty interesting video, and this actually summarizes what we talked about previously in our whatever. I mean, I think we made over 30 videos breaking down the whole losing cycle concept mathematically and logically to describe that gambling is a losing cycle and it's not a winning cycle, and what's going on with your cash flow, with your psychology, and with your financials while you are riding the losing cycle. So what's now more important to discuss is is your psychology when gambling. So your psychology is is your asset in terms of that you determine how you make your decisions in daily life. You make a decision with regard to your financials, your well-being, your health, and your family, and so forth. So what happens to your psychology as a gambler, as a person who is addicted to gambling. you know Somehow your psychology gets compromised. So we're going to be talking about this, the defense system, the psychological defense system. Once it is compromised, what happens? Okay, what kind of irrational decisions you start making, and you start making no sense in whatever you do, and you lose a sense of control in your daily life, in your career, in your investments, in your financials, and everything. It just goes out of the window. So let's break it down and understand how your psychology or how your psychological defense system gets compromised due to gambling. So let's get to it. So, as an introduction, let's define what is weakening the psychological defense system actually mean. So, what do we mean by your psychological defense system, and why is it so important? Now, weakening the psychological defense refers to the diminishing ability of an individual's mental processes to cope with and respond effectively to emotional or psychological challenges. So, you need this psychological defense. It's a mental process to cope with and respond to effectively, to your daily emotional, psychological challenges, right? So, you need to have this psychological defense system in place. Now, in the context of gambling, it means that repeated exposure to the highs and lows of the activity gradually erodes a person's resilience, making them more susceptible to impulsive behavior and less able to resist urges related to gambling. So, once you are more exposed to this gambling activity, it erodes your psychological processes to cope with rational decision making. That's what happens. And you become more exposed to impulsive behavior more and more. Okay? That's why you turn into into an addiction. Gambling becomes an addiction over time due to this impulsive behavior. And you become less able to resist your urges related to any gambling activity. So, this weakening of psychological defense mechanisms can lead to increased vulnerability to addiction and difficulty in controlling gambling impulses. So, as you repeat the process of gambling over time, you become more vulnerable. Your psychology becomes more vulnerable to the attack of the gambling techniques. You take it as a pleasure, you take it as a excitement, you take it as a hobby. So basically, it becomes your part of your life. And then you become addicted, and it becomes extremely difficult to control your gambling impulses. Now, let's talk about the reasons for weakened psychological resilience in continuous gambling. So, let's talk about what are the reasons now why your psychological defense system gets weakened due to gambling. So, the continuous engagement in gambling compromises your psychology by gradually weakening your psychological defense system. Initially, the excitement and anticipation of potential wins draw you in, triggering dopamine releases and reinforcing the reward system and pathways in your brain. Now, however, the emotional roller coaster of wins and losses desensitizes you over time, diminishing the impact of both outcomes. So basically, desensitization here means that you become insensitive to either wins or losses over time. So if you get small or medium sized wins, you don't care. It doesn't impact you much. And you don't even care about your losses anymore. Both. Over time, by repeating the gambling process, you become desensitized to both, to wins and losses. As your resilience weakens, you become more susceptible to addictive behavior and cognitive distortions, such as the illusion of control and overconfidence in betting strategies. So, and then you tend to more and more emphasize on escalating your bets since you have probably a betting strategy or system, and you might facing losses, and then you try to start betting, higher and higher risk, and pushing it even, more into it in order to realize bigger wins. So basically, your cognitive system becomes completely eroded, and you become completely desensitized to wins and losses over time, leading to further losses. Now, this breach in your psychological defense system leaves you vulnerable to impulsive gambling behavior, irrational decision making, and financial losses. Recognizing this very important for your psychological well-being and the well-being of your psychological defense system is very crucial, as it serves as a barrier against the detrimental effects of gambling addiction and helps maintain the control over your behavior and financial well being. Now, the psychological weakness resulting from problem gambling refers to a range of negative psychological effects experienced by individuals who engage in compulsive addictive gambling behavior. Now, you might realize the following uh, uh, you know, uh, situation or feelings as a result of continuous gambling. One is increased level of stress, and the other one is you might be constantly under anxiety and depression and feeling of hopelessness and despair. These are all the outcome of um, the breach of your psychological defense system. Okay, so once your psychological defense system gets breached, you become more stressed, you're going to develop more anxiety, you're going to develop more depression and feelings of hopelessness and despair. You feel that your life is hopeless, you have no hope for to do anything else, and then you're going to start continuing taking higher risk in gambling as the only path for success. Okay, so problem gambling can also lead to impaired decision making ability, distorted perception of risk and reward, and difficulty in controlling impulses related to gambling. Now, these psychological weaknesses can significantly impact an individual's overall well being, relationships, and quality of life. So let's break this down further. Now, emotional roller coaster. Now, this is one of the elements that basically how your psychological defense system gets breached through emotional roller coaster. Okay, so what is it? Emotional roller coaster. Basically, gambling involves a constant cycle of highs and lows. Winning can lead to feelings of euphoria and confidence, while losing can result into frustration, anger, and disappointment. Now, this emotional roller coaster can wear you down over time. So when you constantly go over this wins and highs and lows, highs and lows, ups and downs, and then you will have some kind of streak coming in, some kind of winning streak, some kind of losing streaks. All of this ups and downs, emotional highs and lows, emotionally is going to wear you down. Your psychological defense system over time gets weakened as a result, making it harder to resist impulses and maintain control. It's dangerous to face this roller coaster because this is what is kind of bringing your emotions down. Okay, your psychological defense system will get worn down as a result of roller coaster. You don't need this emotional roller coaster. It's not a good thing to have this emotional roller coaster. That's what it means. So the more you get this emotional roller coaster, the weaker your psychological defense system will become. and your decision making system will get impaired over time. And repeating this over years and years and years, you can imagine how much of your psychological defense system got worn down and it became just compromised. You're not the same human being anymore. You are completely a nightmare. Okay. Everything will be affected around you, your relationships with your kids, your family, your wife, your parents, the work, and everything else. So it's important that you have to stay away from this wins and losses, ups and downs of the gambling in order to maintain a stronger psychological defense system. Okay, so this is one of the elements which basically breaches your psychological defense system, which is the emotional roller coaster. The second one is the desensitization aspect. Okay, that so the more you gamble, the more desensitized you become to both winning and losing. Over time, the excitement of winning diminishes, and you may find yourself chasing bigger wins to recapture that initial thrill. Similarly, the pain of losing becomes less impactful, leading you to take greater risks to try to recover your losses. So, guys, now this is the second factor that leads to your psychological defense system compromise. So, you become completely desensitized. You're no longer chasing wins anymore. Any wins that you get, you become insensitive about it. You don't care about the wins anymore. And when you face losses, you start chasing the losses, even with a bigger risk. All of this, why? Because you want to see that big jackpot coming now. Your hope is for a much bigger win all of a sudden, and your initial wins, just goes out of the window. Okay, you don't care about the winning anymore. So you're not playing for wins, you're not playing for losses, you're not playing for anything. You're just completely compromised. Your brain became compromised. Your psychology, decision making process becomes compromised, and you don't know what you're doing. Okay, you start chasing ghost. You start chasing some illusion, some like to win big, which is not coming. And because of this desensitization, you don't feel it because you become completely paralyzed. You start taking, your cash out of the ATM, your credit card. You start borrowing heavily. You start, taking, debt. You start stealing. You start, basically you go crazy because, you are now insensitive to anything. You're not sensitive to wins and you're not even sensitive to losses. You're just chasing that big win, which is not coming. So literally, you're paralyzed. This is where basically, you think, once you lose it all, this is why you come to think, oh, what happened? How did I lose this much of money? Was I crazy? Wasn't I thinking properly that that I could lose this money when I'm gambling? This is why, because while gambling, you become completely desensitized. You will lose your senses completely. Wins or losses don't care anymore. You are chasing, literally, you're chasing losses, and you are basically chasing some big win which is not coming. Okay, and in the process, you are just losing everything. All right. So this is what's going on. So bear in mind of this desensitization while you are gambling, and it happens to everybody. Okay. So that's the second factor. The third factor that leads to your psychological defense system compromise is the reward system itself. So, gambling triggers the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. Continuous gambling can lead to changes in the brain's reward circuitry, making you more susceptible to addictive behavior and cravings. So, the statement is not complete. Sorry, guys. So, basically, making you more susceptible to addictive behavior. Now, what it means is that your reward system becomes distorted as a result of the dopamine effect. So once you see all wins and losses, the dopamine level in your brain gets distorted. So basically, initially, for a small win, you're going to have a uh, enough dopamine released in your bloodstream that gives you pleasure. But over time, the brain requires higher threshold of the dopamine level in order to get excited. So basically what happens is that, the initial wins don't become, relevant anymore. Your brain is seeking much higher level of dopamine in your bloodstream to get excited. So the threshold is getting higher and higher and higher over time. And that's the danger of continuation in gambling activity. So, keeping gambling session very, very short is very, very important. No matter what do you think, that you can control the situation, that you can control the game, you can control your psychology, you can control. No, you cannot, because these dopamine levels are automatic. Okay, and this is what is basically triggering a lot of disturbance in your decision making process, in your psychological control mechanism. All the circuitry is getting disturbed in your brain because of this dopamine level threshold is getting higher and higher and higher over time, and the reward system gets distorted over time. Okay, so that's the third factor. And the fourth factor is the confirmation bias. Now, when you continue gambling, what happens is that as you experience more and more intermittent wins during gambling sessions, you may develop a sense of confidence in your abilities or your chosen strategies. Now, this confirmation bias can reinforce the belief that you have control over the outcome of games, even though gambling outcomes are largely based on chance. So basically, the confirmation bias is the result of the illusion of control. The more you gamble, okay, the more you get into this belief system that there are systems that can help you out, can bail you out from your losses, and then you try testing different systems, and then sometimes you win small, and then you start linking these small wins to a system, to a skill, to a certain methodology, that what made you win, so that you can keep repeating the process and can lead you to more wins. So basically, these confirmation bias is very dangerous. If you fall into it, basically you are trapping yourself into these irrelevant systems and methods and calculations and counting and so forth. Whatever it is, nothing works because largely it's a game of chance. The house has an edge, or in a longer term, and the more you play, the more you continue gambling, the house wins and you will lose. That's a mathematical fact. There's nothing you can do about this. But the longer you stay in the game, the more you lose, the more you tend to believe that there are systems that can help you out and get you out of this misery, that can get you out of these traps. But then you are completely trapped again. Okay, so this is also will affect your psychological defense system. Your psychologically gets you will get worn out. You are not able to think properly. You're exhausted. You are basically susceptible to any type of tricks. You might end up drinking alcohol. You might doing something else, or further, basically you will lose your control. At the end, eventually, you will go into a complete financial ruin and complete ruin in your life. So confirmation bias is the other areas where your psychology is vulnerable to. So you got to watch out of these confirmation biases and do not fall into it. And the other one is the psychological conditioning. What we mean by here, psychological conditioning, is that over time, the environment of the casino or the online gambling platform becomes associated with excitement and anticipation. So just being in that environment can trigger cravings to gamble, even if you initially intended to abstain. So let's say, initially you said, okay, I'm going to stay away from gambling. Well, you managed to stay away, let's say 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, 1 year. Still, over time, you will have this crave, you will have this urge to come back. We made some other videos why you develop urges in order to come back to gambling. I advise you to watch them to make sure that you understand your urge better so that you can control it. So, over time, basically, your psychology is getting conditioned. And this conditioned psychology is not easy to erase, okay? It's there. It's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. And this psychological conditioning will trigger one way or another, sooner or later, in 1 or 2 years, you will have this crave to come back. And it just takes one moment to make you fall into trap. What I mean is, one moment is like once you enter the casino, or once you enter the online casino, once you transfer the money, and once you start gambling, you're trapped. The whole cycle of doom will start. So basically, it's very important for you to manage this process. Okay. Now let's summarize the cycle of doom. Now, what is the cycle of doom? The cycle of doom starts with the initial excitement. That's step number one. Okay. It starts with initial excitement. In initial excitement, the gambling begins with a sense of excitement and anticipation. That's how it starts. So, as individuals are drawn in by the possibility of winning money and the thrill of the game, right? So, it can actually uh, it can come back as a relapse due to psychological conditioning, or it can be just your first visit to the casino, or it can be whenever you stopped for a while and you come back to play again. It's all because this excitement, this initial excitement. Then the emotional roller coaster will begin. So once you start the game, the emotional roller coaster will start. So as the gambling session progresses, individuals experience a roller coaster of emotions. Wins lead to feelings of euphoria and confidence, overconfidence, while losses result in frustration and disappointment. And this becomes highly frequent. Ups and downs becomes very frequent, further eroding your psychological defense system. And then over time, you become desensitized to wins and losses. So over time, the impact of both winning and losing diminishes. The excitement of wins decreases, leading individuals to chase bigger victories, while the pain of losses becomes less significant, prompting riskier behavior. Okay? Then, also, what happens once you become desensitized to wins and losses, then your reward system gets distorted. Okay? Gambling activates the brain's reward system, releasing dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. Continuous gambling can lead to changes in the brain's reward circuitry, making individuals more susceptible to addictive behavior and cravings. Now, once you become deep into the gambling and you are desensitized to wins and losses, you're chasing the big wins, your reward system becomes distorted, your dopamine levels will become distorted, and you might be creating some kind of weird reward system activated, chasing big wins, and you will be deep into the hole, and you're trying to get out of it through chasing losses, and you're gonna get yourself into deeper trouble. Um, so once your reward system gets disturbed, you start developing a convoluted confirmation biases, meaning that you're gonna start looking into systems to bail you out. So intermittent wins during gambling sessions may reinforce the belief that individuals have control over the outcomes of the game. This confirmation bias leads to overconfidence in strategies and abilities, despite chance playing a significant role in gambling results. So basically, it's all based on chance, it's all based on randomness, it's all random outcomes, and the house has an edge. But the gambler doesn't believe that. He still believe that they have a confirmation bias, they have illusion of control, that they got some system and method can bail them out. So basically, they are going to go deeper and deeper into the hole. Then, basically, once you become deep in the hole, then your psychology becomes heavily conditioned. So the gambling environment becomes now associated with excitement and anticipation. Exposure to this environment triggers cravings to gambling all the time, even when individuals initially intend to abstain. So no matter how much you try, no matter how much you basically isolate yourself, you will still keep coming back due to the psychological conditioning because you are heavily in the hole right now. So you'd say, okay, I'm done. I'm gonna stop. I have lost a lot of money. Then you're gonna stop yourself for 1 month, 2 months. And again, regardless of your abstain, you keep coming back at this level. So this is now, it means that you are deep in the hole. You are heavily, you have a problem gambling, big time in this case at this level. Then you become, as a human, basically you get deteriorated in terms of your psychological defense system, weakening resilience of your psychology. So the constant cycle of emotional highs and lows coupled with desensitization and reward system activation, gradually weakens your psychological resilience. Individuals become more vulnerable to impulses and less able to resist urges to gamble at this stage. Now you are much, much deeper in the hole. Um, Due to your weakening of your psychological resilience, you become unproductive at work. Your relationship with your parents and with your spouse will get affected. With your kids will get affected, and now you are basically in a deep trouble. Okay, so now this is where you get yourself in a big trap psychologically. Then your cognitive distortion will get you into a much deeper hole. Basically, the persistent gambling in here reinforces cognitive distortions, such as irrational beliefs about luck and control, further perpetuating the cycle of gambling behavior. So basically, now here and go into some kind of believing into different systems, different methods, looking for different ideas, different methodology, and how to bail you out from this deep hole. Again, you're going to push yourself deeper and deeper by believing that there is a system out there can bail you out. And then you become 100% psychologically vulnerable. That's it. So basically, in this case, you are, um, you know, I would say, point of no return. You're psychologically, it's completely vulnerable. There is no shield that can protect you from any threat coming in. So over time, individuals here, psychological vulnerabilities are exploited by the gambling industry, leading to an increased risk of addiction and complete financial ruin. So, guys, I hope you have found this video very informative, and we worked hard to explain exactly how your psychological defense system is important to maintain your control over life. And as a human, as you might be a father, you might be a boss, you might be uh, an expert in a field, in a job, or you might be an entrepreneur. All of this, basically, if you don't control your psychological defense system, you won't be able to achieve any goals in life. And going into gambling and going into believing that you can make money in gambling is a stupidity. It's just 100% stupidity, and it's going to get you in a complete destruction. And the most important asset, you as a human, is your psychological well being. And if you can find other ways that you can nurture your psychological well being, find it, do it. It can be meditation, it can be um, other skills like you can go into the music, you can go to adventure, traveling, you can go into art, you can go into science, whatever excites you. To nurture your psychological well-being is very, very, very important. And the last thing you want to do is to expose your psychology to gambling world, where it's going to get destroyed. They're going to destroy your psychology. They're going to destroy your emotion. They're going to destroy you as a human. That's all what it means. So, guys, until next video, please don't forget to press our subscribe button and the like button, just to let us know that you like this video, and we will continue creating more videos, more innovative videos, um, to break down this beast into meaningful information, so that everyone can realize the importance of staying away from the gambling. All right, guys, cheers. See you guys later.